Hello? What's up, guys? What's up, my fellow neurons? It's me, Roman. Guess I'm making a neurotyping video because I've actually been working on like a tabletop RPG. I know, I'm so creative. I'm all over the place. I've come to the conclusion that I am a creative person who has a really hard time sticking with a creative medium. So right now I've been working on a tabletop RPG and I'm just in a rut on that, and I think I need to step away from that project for just a bit and do something else to clear my head, come back with a clear head to that project. So I'm going to do a neurotyping video. Um Hopefully I can crush this out. We'll find out. I'm just going to describe to you guys my way of neurotyping people. Okay, I'm not going to describe to you the OG understanding of neurotyping, how neurotype. I'm not here to give you a history lesson. I'm here to tell you how I neurotype people, which will, give you some idea of how the chart works. So let's go for it. Um, so I'll pull up the chart here, probably. I'm looking at it on a separate monitor. Um, but okay. So neurotyping there's 16 categories. And there's what would you say, on two axes. So we got lateral to linear, lexical to impressionist. Okay, what does that mean? Lexicality to impressionism, for me, I see that as quantified thought and action versus thought and action that is kind of vibed out or acted out. So I can't really think of a great example of this, but basically, I'm just going to wing it. So you want to quantify the thing you do, or you're trying to be really precise about why and exactly what you're doing and the reasons for it, and that's lexicality. And impressionism is more like, I don't really know the specifics, but I know how to act. I don't know why necessarily, but I'm acting shit out. So we got like, I like to say quantified, but lexicality to impressionism, quantified to act it out, or vibed out. And then we got lateral to linear. Lateral to linear is interesting, uh, because I don't think it works the way it's originally intended. The basic thought of neurotyping, for I think the original idea is something like, when you think of stuff, you have a bunch of thoughts in your head, right? Like, it's not necessarily one singular train of thought. So like, you think the classic example is someone saying banana vomit. You don't just think of banana vomit, just bananas, or just vomit. There's like a cloud of ideas there. And the OG understanding, I guess, is something like, the more lateral you are, the more things there are in your head, and the more linear you are, the less. And maybe that logistically is how it works. I don't know. But for me, I just, it's hard to focus on how people think, because people don't even understand how they themselves think. So you got to go off actions at some point. So for me, linear to lateral is like how straightforward to complex you behave and your rationales for things are. So very linear people are pretty straightforward. They're like, whatever they want to do next is like, okay, we do this. And but the reasonings are more just kind of like, there's just straightforward. There's like less going on there. It's not necessarily bad. If it fucking straightforward works and it's working for you, then that's fine. It's kind of how I am. I'm more linear, I think, because I'm not coming up with these like complex ideas, but they all start small and I build them up. It's probably how lateral people think too. How do I say this? Linear people, more straightforward. Lexical people are just more complex in their thoughts and actions, I guess, and their motivations. Pure instinct, bookkeeper, level-headed, clear-sighted. They're just, boom, they're there. They're vibing with it. And if they're right, they're right. I mean, no fault. If you're straightforward and you're right, like, who cares? But if you're, and more complex people are more like, just more well thought out, I guess. They have a deeper thought process or understanding of things. I'm done talking about that. So there's four categories on each side of each axis. So that's how we get 16. Very, fairly vary as far as the sides go. And I think a big problem with neurotyping is trying to figure out where that line really falls. Um, for me, if you're very something, you are lacking some level of the other side. There's like a clear lack of something on the other side. For example, if I'm really lexical, if I'm in the very lexical category, I'm likely lacking or I'm lacking some level of impressionism. It's difficult for me to just act out what I need to do. I have to quantify it first. Um, that's it. That's what it feels. Something like that. The opposite way would be I struggle to quantify things out. I have to act it out first, at the very least. Um, and then linear people, like very linear, you have a like you struggle to get to that complex level. You don't have that complex understanding of something a lot of the time. And then lateral people are like, sure, they might be big brain, they have all these complex understandings, but you can just railroad yourself into insanity when you're overly thinking everything, right? So they're lacking some level of straightforwardness. That's how I see it. The varies are lacking something, and the fairlies are like pretty even. Probably externalists, overseers, quick-witted, understanding right there in the center. They're probably, in the way I type people, they're probably the most well-adjusted people. I don't know, maybe. That theoretically speaking, that might be the type that those are the types that like would function best in society. But realistically, there's probably people all over the spectrum, and they just get by how they get by. Neurotyping is really interesting to me because when I first learned about it, I didn't really think there was anything wrong with it. I think it's kind of a flawed system. But the really nice thing about neurotyping is it opened my eyes to like people will just think completely differently than you. Specifically the lexical to impressionist thing. I think that's real on some level. Where people will be like they have an idea of something, but they can't put it into words. I totally feel that phenomena at some level. I think everyone's been there. I think everyone's at least talked to someone who doesn't know what they're talking about. They're like basically thinking it while they're talking, and that's kind of how if I feel like the talk feels to talk to an impressionistic person sometimes, or sometimes the person's just kind of vibing out. I don't even know. It's kind of hard to explain. Sorry if I got you guys' hopes up that this was like an anime channel or something. I know that's what I advertise it as, but I'm just an insane person who, does random BS. I should change that to my channel description. An insane person who does random BS. So anyway, that's my neurotyping. That's how I neurotype people. And there's nothing much else to say. See ya.